Good afternoon, everyone. Again, for those of you that don't know, my name is Luke Berger, and I am an AI experimenter, and this is my second video. So yesterday, I taught people how to build a job application portal, but I think this example is going to be a lot more useful. So today, we're going to create a quick HubSpot integration system where we take a Google form, where the prospect inputs a Google form, they submit it, and then we take the information, put it into HubSpot, Google Sheets, and then we send them a personalized email. So with that being said, for those of you who don't know, we're using an application called Zapier, which is a automation platform. It's basically, if you are a newcomer to building out automations and ones that are powered by AI, then this is the platform to use, and I'm going to teach you how to use it today. So for beginners, there in automations, there are triggers and actions. So a trigger is an event that basically initiates the sequence of all the corresponding actions. Think about a firework where the trigger is something that lights up the firework, and then all the actions are the firework actually exploding over and over again. That's how I would think about it if I were you. So in this case, in order to build this HubSpot integration, first we're going to start with a trigger. So that trigger again is going to be Google Forms. And for those of you who don't know, there are 7,000 different apps you can use, and a lot of them are pretty useful, such as HubSpot, Salesforce, all the Google, all the Microsoft apps, Slack, Notion, etc. But for now, our trigger is going to be Google Forms. So for Google Forms, our trigger event is, it's only two different options. We're going to pick new form response, because basically when the person submits a form, that will be the trigger. So new form response, load, configure. There's only one option here. We're just going to pick a form, and then we're going to do a test. But before we do that, I'm actually going to fill out that. Well, actually, no, we don't need to do that. I'll do that just after this. So wait for the testing. So we have some records, but let's submit a new record just so you see it from the top. So let's go to CRM system. We're going to submit another response. Luca Berger, just made up company name, my very secret email. And then I have a few options here. I'm going to pick AI consulting, lead source, social media. That's where this will be. Budget, I'm going to say 200. Description, client needs. I want to integrate AI across all functions of my company. And we're going to click submit. So now, as you can see there, we submitted that form. And when there's new forms, what we're going to do is we're going to find new records. And wait for that to load. Response D. So that's what we just put in. Okay, so we're going to continue the selected record. And this will then trigger the corresponding action, which is we're going to take that information from the form and then put it into our HubSpot. So for our sales reps, this is going to be great, and you can do something very similar to Salesforce. So HubSpot, and HubSpot is many more actions, but for this case, all we're going to do is create a contact. So create contact, very simple. Click continue, and for those who don't know, this is the initial thing we're going to see here is the contact. So name, first name, it's all the same columns as it was in the Google form. So go back to Zapier real quick. We're going to have a bunch. See, HubSpot has a lot more categories. So this is where we actually be a lot more diligent at what inputs we put in here. So we're just basically going to use here name, or first name, last name, company name, email, service interest, lead source, all of these. So we're going to go into Zapier and actually find those out. So let's go do first name first. So we can use this very handy field search here. that's this magnifying glass. So first name, and then this plus button is going to be really clutch. So here, then we can take all the information from the Google form. First name, Luca, easy. Then we're going to do last name, same thing. Last name, Burger. Okay, what was next? I believe it was company name. Here, Neuronova. Email. There we go. Email. Where is it? This, my very secret email. What other things do we need? Let me check. So email, service interest lead source. Okay, so search that up. Service interest. Again, service interest here. AI consulting. Lead source. Lead source is just basically mixing and matching the information we input in the Google Sheets. So where's that? Lead source, social media. Just because this is going to be posted on social media, so I think it's a good match. Budget. I put budget $ $200, and then description of client needs, and then the last one over here. So client needs. There we go. See, now we have all the information, and this is the important part. Let's see if it actually works. Let's test a step. Work. So now let's go back into HubSpot and see any information's been added. So we can reload it. There we go. Luca Burger, Neuronova, AI Find Nomad, very secret email. All information we put in the Google form is here, just from making this automation. So imagine this at scale. It's definitely going to be very handy. And next, this is where the AI part comes in. So this should be very intriguing. So let's see. This is where we come into ChatGPT, where the AI part actually comes in really handy. So ChatGPT. And for this part, this is where it's not complicated, but it requires a little more work than you think. Well, not really. It's just more so finding where the information is. So for this, we're going to classify the text because we're going to create 3 different categories, which we'll see very soon. So classify text, and then let's click continue. See if that works. If not, we should have an API key situation here. So see text to be classified, new form. And if let's say we only accept clients based off a certain budget, we're going to click budget. That's going to be text to be classified. And our categories, we're going to split into 3 different categories, which we'll see why in 2 seconds. So cold lead, warm lead. Basically, a cold lead is a client that literally will barely bring us any money for the time and effort putting into this. Warm lead, it's like intermediate, and a hot lead is okay. They're really bringing the big bucks for this. So that's what we're gonna do. And then this is something very important too, is the model and the max tokens. So for this case, for LLMs like GPT-4o, 4.5, like this is what you should be using for this. Something that doesn't really require much critical thinking. But for example, if you need something that requires a little bit of reasoning, then that's where you get into O3, O4 Mini, Google's reasoning models. But for this, especially pick the mini models, because the mini models cost way less money than the normal models of like GPT 4.5 or GPT 4, or I guess this case GPT 4.1. And the max tokens is the output or the amount of words that will be in the response. So this is a little excessive for what we're doing, especially because its budget is only 3 characters. So let's put it like a 300 or 400. This has a very big impact on the amount you pay per output. That's going to be a whole different topic for another video, but it's important that for something as simple as this, you don't need to have 1,000 characters. But okay, so let's click continue. Let's test the step. See, this is where we need to go back and get the API key. So let's go back to the setup. Let's change this, or reconnect. So reconnect. And see, this is where we'll come into a new terminology, which is API key. An API key is basically, think about how two apps communicate with each other. So basically how Zapier communicates with ChatGPT is through this API key. So for ChatGPT or for OpenAI, you need to go to platform.openai.com and basically create an API key. So I did this for another project of mine, but for this specific project, I'll create a new secret key. Don't try to, in the future, look at this API key, input it. It's not going to work. I'm going to delete it. So also make sure to keep your API keys hidden, or else people could use it for really bad purposes and take advantage of it. And basically, whenever they're using, they cost you money. So let's, in this case, let's say HubSpot CRM system. We're going to get a default project. Depending on if you have a bunch of projects going on, if you have a company, this could change, but for me, it's just default project. Create a secret key. Basically, then what you're going to do is then copy this key. And normally, if it's for your company, if you have ongoing operations, hide it somewhere safe. For this case, I'm literally just going to go back into Zapier, copy again, and then I'm going to go back here and then connect to the account, API key, copy, paste. This is optional for me, and maybe for a lot of you who are starting out, you don't need to put the organization ID, but for now, just put the API key. That's the only thing's required. Click yes. And then now let's go back, configure. It's going to be the same thing. Model. Make sure the model for this type of task is a LLM, not an LRM. The difference is LLMs take a second to think and process the information, then gives you an output. LLMs are just a quick response, but doesn't require much thinking. But depending on the certain processes, like if you're reviewing a law document, definitely use LRM because you can't get that wrong, or else you can really screw yourself. But also tokens, make sure it's small for the most part, because that can cost you more money. The more tokens you have, the higher the number is for the tokens. So let's retest the step. So test the step again. Test, perfect. So the next what we're going to do is add the next step and Google Sheets. So I already have an account, but since we're going to be, like a lot of companies, they have Google Sheets or Excel, and they also have Salesforce or HubSpot on top of that. We're also going to input the same customer data into Google Sheets as well. In this case, since we're adding a new customer data with the columns still being the same, we're just going to create a spreadsheet row. It's very important. Configure, and then spreadsheet. I already actually created a spreadsheet, which you see in 2 seconds. Save your CRM sheets. If you have multiple sheets, there'll be multiple different options. I only have one sheet, so sheet 1. And from there, see all this information will pop up. Okay, now let's go back here. So before this recording, I took the time to create this little table, and these are all the columns, which will then be used. Sorry, just a little bit of a OCD about that. Doesn't matter. Anyways, so again, we're going to be using this plus button to input the proper information into each proper column. So first name, we're going to go back to the Google Forms, the first trigger, and we're going to put in first name, which is Luca. Last name is Burger. You get the gist. I'm just going to do this really quickly. Company name, Terranova. AI Fire Nomad. Service interest. First context, put AI consulting. So there we go. Lead source. We found out through social media because that's where you guys can be watching this content. Budget. It's going to be the budget we input before. Description need, client needs. This is the one that's going to be different, is lead score. So in this part, we remember we had the 3 different sections of cold lead, warm lead, hot lead. So that was ChatGPT analyzing the budget and determining whether or not it's one of those 3 categories. So instead of clicking before for all the other ones, you clicked on Google Form, Here we're actually going to click on number 3, and then we're just simply going to pick the category. So it's cold lead. Okay, continue. And then again, like every other step, we're going to test the step. And it worked. See that little plus? And this is where we actually go back to Google Sheets and check if it actually works, or else this automation, there's no point in actually making this automation. So let's go back, and it works. All the information is here. So let's go back to Zapier. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to send emails, but each email is that's going to be sent is going to be different based off the category ChatGPT selects, whether it's a cold lead, warm lead, or hot lead. So we're going to do, in order to do that, we're going to go to paths and see we have 2 different paths here. But since we have 3 different categories, we're going to add a different path. So now we have cold, warm, and hot. And now we're going to actually create those different conditions. So field, condition, and data. So for the field, we're going to go to here, and we're going to pick the category because I'm going to put contains, and then category because we're going to write here cold, warm, or hot, and we're going to do cold first. So cold lead. We're going to continue, and see, because it was cold before, the path would have continued. And then before we go on to the next action, we're actually just going to copy and paste this just to save us time and make minor edits. So copy, paste, and one more, copy, paste. Okay, now we're going to go back. We're going to do warm lead now, and let's see if it would proceed. So continue. See, the path wouldn't have continued because it was cold, like ChatGPT said it was a cold lead, and this is the warm lead, so it wouldn't have continued. Now let's do it again for hot lead. Hot lead. There we go. The path would not continued. Okay. So now we're going to do the last action, which is send an email to, depending on if it's a cold, warm, or hot, we're going to send different emails. So action here, we're going to go to Gmail. We're going to send the email. We're going to connect the account, and then check this Snazzy Jazz out. So we're going to wait for it to load. Configure. All right. So 2 is going to be the email that the prospect put in the form. So in this case, the secret email, AI find Nomad from, it's going to be this email. Okay. And then subject is, see, as a red asterisk, that means it's required. So we're going to put thank you for your interest. And then just like we did for the path conditions, we can also, just for the saving time, we're then just going to copy this and then paste it here and then make the necessary edits. So here, paste or replace. Okay. And then I'm going to write the body. So here, and then use this plus button again. And I'm going to use the first name to make it personalized. So whenever there's a new form submission, there'll be a different name that pops up based off this condition. Dear Luca, thank you for your interest. And unfortunately for this person, we're not really going to help them because they don't bring enough money to the table for us to make it worth our whiles. But they don't know that, though. So we're going to say, thank you for your interest. Unfortunately, all of our consultants are currently working on projects, but we will reach out to you when we can. Thank you for your patience. Let's make some edits. Thank you for your interest in the, again, plus button here, AI consulting service. Okay. Thank you for your patience. Sincerely, Luca's Personal Ventures. Make that uncapitalized. Okay. Continue. And now we're going to test the step. And it works. So now we're going to go back to the inbox, and I'm going to see if it actually works. Here. Okay, so thank you for your interest in AI consulting service. Unfortunately, all of our consultants are currently in projects. So as you can see, it works. And then we can do that for the other two, but for the context of time, I'm not going to do that right now, but you would get the gist. So hopefully this is helpful to all my sales professionals out there. And yeah, this is really not as hard as it might seem from the outside, but hopefully this can help, and have a great rest of your day.